podcast contains subject matter that may be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
For imprints
It's time to open the door in your mind. Sit back and listen to true horror. But be careful what you allow in. Because it's time to go through the fog. This week's story is Dead.fm, posted by user Simba the Savage 8 to r/short scary stories. I was messing around with the dials on the old radio, even though it was nearly midnight and most stations had stopped broadcasting. It was a beautiful beast, that radio. It was made in 1920 and had a shell of oak. The air was silent and still. I could hear nothing but static. Then...
Daddy? Is that you? Can you hear me?
I nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard that. Her voice was like a sorrowful angel. It was also very familiar. I hadn't heard that voice in many years. Rosie? Tears welled up into my eyes. Rosie passed away when she was just 7 years old.
I miss you, Daddy. Will you come and visit me?
I frowned, looking at the moon shining in through the window. It was getting really late, but Rosie needed me. Sure, I said. There was no going back. The path leading to the graveyard was dark, illuminated only lightly by the moon. Weeds twisted and grew on the edges. Creepers hung down by the sides. I had to push through vast undergrowth to move through. It felt like I was walking through an untamed jungle. Finally, the path opened up to where more light fell. Gravestones stood in groups of 2s and 3s, staring at me solemnly as I walked past. Some had withered flowers lying on freshly turned soil. Finally, I found Rosie's grave. Unlike the others, her gravestone was cracked and worn down by the rain and wind. I could barely make out the words on her grave. I knelt down in front of it and bowed my head. "I love you, Rosie," I whispered, tears in my eyes. "No, you don't." I jerked my head up to see my daughter scowling at me. Her eyes were bloody and swollen, her lips cracked and purple. Her neck was bent at an awkward angle. She was wearing a dirty white dress. "You never visited my grave. You just forgot about me. You're a terrible father." A spindly pale hand reached out from the soil and grabbed my waist, anchoring me to the ground. For the first time, Rosie cracked a smile. The soil rose up around me, licking my body, and hands dragged me downward. "But you're here now," she said, "and you'll be forever with me."
Through the Fog is recorded and edited by Haptic. Produced by Flyover State Park and Kevin Caravan. All stories are recorded with the original author's permission or released under a Creative Commons Share-alike license. For more episodes, visit throughthefogcast.com or follow fog_cast on Twitter. Links to both are in the show notes. You can support the show by visiting buymeacoffee.com/throughthefog or simply by rating and reviewing on your podcatcher of choice. It's the simplest way to support independent shows like these. Whatever you decide to do, though, thank you for listening, and talk to you next week.
This is Flyover State Park. You are clear to land.